friends. We ended with the a first great gift. There are so many gifts that the Lord has merited for us. And we talked about sanity in the last episode. But this one, we're going to focus in on happiness. Why happiness? Well, it's a traditional, Aristotle starts there. Aquinas, building on Aristotle, starts there. I don't think we can go too far wrong following those minds in our discussion. To know that one is loved without reserve is the basis for happiness. Christ promised to make our joy complete as his was in John 15:11. So it's one of the promises of Christ. I'll kind of refer to this throughout our conversation. It's a little book. It's old. I should have looked to see when it was printed. 1970. Well, if you can believe that. Well, it's a Catholic book of Bible promises. So it's just it's just a little something, a little joy. And so one of the promises that Christ made was from John 15:11, that his joy is complete. I mean, his joys would be full, and our joy would complete because we'd be sharing in his joy. Happiness starts in this life and is brought to completion in the world to come. Abiding in Jesus' love, living the life he points out, is a life of joy. Truthfulness, consistency, honesty, fidelity, temperance, and the other virtues are but manifestations of a life patterned after Christ. When I see homes where spouses see each other with the eyes of Christ, I see happy marriages. It is the difference between how can I help you versus what have you done for me lately. When I see employers who see with the eyes of Christ, and employees who also have the eyes of Christ, their work hours aren't seen as one of how much can I get out of the other, or what can I get away with on the clock, but rather it's an entrustment between the parties of being good stewards. They're wanting to do their best as a personal standard that each of the parties has. I think about people who have eyes of God, who sees things who see the world with the mind of Christ, and those people are trustworthy. They're a delight to be with, and at times I've seen a glow about them, a real spirituality that engulfs them, and it's a marvelous thing. It really is. To me, that's what happiness is. It's just a well-ordered life, as you said in the last episode.
Yeah, that's one of the things that when I would be teaching the politics class, that's one of the things that you would talk about in regards to Aristotle. You know, what is the final end? What are we looking for? And the final end is to look for happiness. But one of the ways that he defines that is to have enough for yourself and more with which to be generous, which I think is actually a perfect definition of God, right? He's complete in himself, and he has enough with which to be generous, and so he's at the perfect state of happiness because he can do those things. And you know, in it's a very limited sense, you know, in a market economy or in the human market. I mean, not necessarily just in a market economy per se, to make that statement. But for the true Christian, even a Christian who is poor always has enough. Right? They always have enough for themselves, and they always have enough with which to be generous because they recognize that God is the God of the widow's pot, right? The pot that never goes dry. I mean, imagine the depth of faith of that woman, you know, who believed, you know, the prophet Elijah, that there would be enough in that pot to get through that desert and dry period with, you know, what she thought was a handful of oil. I mean, a little drop of oil and a handful of flour. But that is the beauty of God, is that within the Christian soul, particularly the soul of the Christian in grace, there's always cause for happiness, because we know that the pot never run dry. The economy of God is complete and never, it's like the water system, right? I mean, we can't run out of water in the world because it's constantly recycling itself. And that's the same thing with the divine economy, is that there's always going to be sufficient as it moves through the system, per se.
That's right. Very good. I think we're going to stop there, because the next episode is going to take up the resurrection, and that could go on a bit. And people can enjoy a shorter episode. We all enjoy that. Yeah. To the next time, my friends. Fide Sriracha.